Here we are.
Here we are.
Another podcast.
With
Learning
Jedi.
how to make our brains work for us, not against us.
100%.
Unlocking our secret superpowers in our brains to achieve health and fitness faster than ever before and easier than anyone ever even imagined.
Wham!
With little to no willpower required. Let's go! Yeah, like after you're fired up yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited. What are we talking about
Okay.
today? Let's go.
So last cast, we talked about the brain type test, and you both took it, and you both had two brain types, but you actually shared one.
It's pretty cool.
So one of you, it was the primary, and the other, it was secondary. But so we had three brain types to talk about, and we did that. And there's one brain training technique that is included in all three of these brain types, and that's conscious eating. So why not talk about that? Yeah. So the conscious eating isn't actually about half the brain types, but the three that you two represent are the president brain type, the author brain type, and the motivator brain type. And conscious eating is in all three of those. So if you have two brain types after you take the brain type test, and then you look at your brain training techniques page, which is 6 brain training techniques to rewire your brain and to get your goals faster and easier. Again, these are your top 6 brain training techniques that are going to make the most sense to your brain type. But a common thread, oh yeah, go for that.
Yeah.
Start with that.
Yeah.
Because even though it's only 6 brain training techniques, and even though most brain training techniques are just a short post or a 7-minute or less video, that's easy, right? It still takes practice and a little bit of effort. And so 6 of those can be overwhelming. So I tell people, just go through them all, check it out, and see which one resonates the most, and start with that one. But in your case, since it's repeated, both of your types repeats conscious eating, and both of your types repeats conscious eating. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think that we've kind of talked about these in the past podcasts, and conscious eating is like really hard for me. I've already noticed it's hard for you, just because we're like so hungry, you know, and then we just like go, you know, we're just like
all the time.
eat so fast. So I'm really excited to hear like more and just like a deeper dive into conscious eating and what that really means, because it has huge health benefits like we've talked about. So yeah.
Well, first of all, the reason that conscious eating is so great is it solves a problem in our culture, and it is very cultural. In the U.S., we wolf our food down. And in Europe, eating is an event, especially dinner. And it takes a long time. And it's multiple courses, and they're taking their time, they're talking about it, they're enjoying it, and it's an event. For us, it's just, let's just get it done. Let's get it out of the way. And it's how we were raised. Our culture raises us like that. We're busy. Let's get on with it. Just when you're eating, it's more about just fueling and getting it done. If it's yummy, we wolf it down. And where that term comes from, wolf, right? That's a dog. You've seen how dogs eat.
Yeah, they eat crazy fast.
You know, I kind of see how they can even taste anything.
Yeah.
I mean, they just,
Yeah.
and then it's swallowed. They're done. But when we're doing that, it's causing lots of problems. The main one being, it's really easy to overeat, because the hunger mechanism takes about 20 minutes to register. So we can wolf down food for 20 minutes and way overeat if we're wolfing it down.
Really?
And then, have you ever gotten to the point where all of a sudden you notice, oh my gosh, I'm so full.
Yeah.
And you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's not fun to be that full.
Yeah.
Because the food was so amazing. You know, Thanksgiving, everybody made the thing, and everybody brought the stuff and the sweets and the dessert. And then it hurts.
Yeah.
And you feel horrible, and you want to go into that food coma. Even if it's not a high carb meal, you can still put yourself in that food coma from overeating.
Yeah.
And that's because you ate it so fast ahead of the satiety mechanism in our body, our wiring. You got ahead of that. Got it all in before it could register. But when we're consciously eating, we're slowing down, we're enjoying it, then it solves that problem. The other issue is when you're eating too fast, you're not chewing it thoroughly, which is a huge part of digestion. Some people say it's the biggest part of digestion.
Well, because your
chewing it.
saliva.
So carbs and vegetables and things can start being digested in the mouth.
Does saliva detox certain
It breaks
bad
them
things
down.
in the food?
It's not a detox as much as it is helping to break it down.
Okay.
Except for meat.
Yeah.
Those enzymes are in the stomach. So people say, okay, well, I can wolf my meat down. No, because you still need to break it down so your stomach doesn't have to do all that work. Because it's only going to stay in your stomach for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And once it leaves your stomach, it needs to be broken down enough for you to be utilizing. So your digestive system is going to break down fat first, and it's going to get that out to where it's needed or store it. And then carbs second and protein last, takes the longest. And so when people are wolfing down their food and it gets into their stomach, by the time it gets back out of their stomach, it's only partially digested. But all the fat's taken out of it.
And also, another question I had was if they don't chew it enough, does it take more energy in their stomach to digest it? As opposed to if
Absolutely.
you're chewing it a lot more, it's easier for your body to digest, so your energy you can use for like other things.
Absolutely. It takes more energy to digest it. And it's like I say, the motility moves it out. It doesn't stay in there until it's fully digested. The stomach gets this partially chewed food and it goes, oh man. And so, it tries to get more acid in
Works
there and it tries to
harder.
move around more and do all the things that it's supposed to be doing to break it down because the mouth was too lazy to do its job. And so now it's got to do more work, but then it's like, well, it's time to leave. And I couldn't do it fully. So we only were able to extract the fat out of that. And so, which most people don't want to just getting the fat out of their food. They want to be getting nutrients and protein and those things.
Yeah, you want to
out
get
of
the
their
full
food.
effects
Right.
of what you're eating.
I was just on a trip and I was watching this guy eat. We were at a restaurant. And Bev and I, of course, get our meat and veggies. It was a Mexican restaurant, so we got fajitas. Told him to hold the rice, hold the beans, hold the tortillas. Just bring us the meat and veggies. And it was delicious. But there's this guy at another table, and morbidly obese. And when the food showed up, he wolfed it down. And I'm thinking, oh man, poor guy doesn't know. He's probably really struggling with his weight. And he just figures he's stuck this way. So he's getting too much food before his satiety mechanism kicks in. And he's only absorbing the fat out of that food, but he's getting enough in there that the pancreas is freaking out and pumping out a whole bunch of insulin because he's overeating, he's eating it too fast. And so now he's in a high insulin state, which is a fat burning or fat storing mode. It's a calorie nutrient storing mode. So a lot of people say insulin, oh yeah, it's a fat burning hormone or fat storing hormone. And it's really bad and insulin's awful. No, insulin's wonderful. We need to have insulin because it's the hormone that helps us store things. So it puts the cells in a storing mode. So insulin helps us store protein. It helps us store carbs. It helps us store fat. Fat and protein are essential. We can't live without them. Carbs is not. But it helps us store all of those things. But if we're eating really fast, we're not breaking down the protein. So we have these high insulin no matter what, right? Because we just overate. But since our stomach was only, it's not only, I'm exaggerating, right? It's always a combination of everything. But it's mostly the fat that it extracted because that's the easiest part to extract that out of food. Because it doesn't need any conversion or anything. It just pulls it out and puts it in the bloodstream. So that comes out first. So this poor guy is wolfing his food down, cranking up his insulin, putting himself in a storing mode. Mostly just fat is being extracted now to the bloodstream. So now all this fat is floating around in the bloodstream. Insulin is making him store all that fat. And he doesn't know he's sabotaging himself every single meal.
Yeah, I was actually reading something. I just figured this out, and it's really interesting. We're talking about this too. just kind of always correlates with what we end up talking about, just like little things that I learned. But it was talking about how in the beginning of the day you want to eat things that are like more easily digested, and just because when you do eat things that take a lot of energy to digest, because when you're digesting something, it takes energy. And that's why when you get super, super, super full and you haven't had the ability to break down your food, you feel like something just sucked the soul out of you, because you're just like, oh my gosh. And you get so tired, sleepy. People want to sleep after they eat a big meal. And so it's because you're working in overtime to digest food. So they talk about eating things that are easier to digest until the later part of the day, like when you're at the later part. So you eat like more of like the harder things to break down, like really heavy meats or like just different things like that. And it's not the same for everybody. I know that with energy, it definitely is, but you just don't want to overdo it, is what I'm saying, in the morning. Like you can eat it like halfway through the day, but you just want to kind of avoid it in the morning. But it's also when you intake that much food and you're trying to break it down, it's just like you are ultimately tired, and it's really bad for you to do that. And I tend to scarf down food really, really quickly, and I know that it has really like diminished my ability to like break down food in my stomach, and my digestive system is just not even like near where it needs to be because of that reason. That's like definitely a contributing factor. So
What would be good foods that are like more easily digestive to eat in the morning?
It depends on your metabolism and your heritage and your goals, and there's lots of things. I do keto just because it's mostly for longevity reasons and health reasons, and
it works for you too.
experimenting with all of them, all of the different diets. I have found from my physiology and my goals and schedule and all that kind of stuff, keto's perfect for me. Certainly not for everybody, and I rarely recommend it for other people.
Keto is what works for you, and like you're a healthy keto person, where people will be like, oh, keto, like I can eat butter and bacon all the time, and like that's what they think keto is. And it's like, no. My point is just with keto, you have to be able to do it correctly, and most people don't do the diets that they're told to do correctly, and they're just not properly educated. And so they go in, they're like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then they like do it wrong, and then they start gaining weight, and they're like, this doesn't work for me. It happens all the time. It's like you actually have to figure out what works best for your body in a healthy way. Because like you see people that are vegetarian and vegan, and they're big. You're like, how are you heavy? And you have well, it's because they're eating cheese and Oreos all the time. If they're vegetarian, and if they're vegan, they're eating Oreos all the time, and like processed like vegan meats and like all these different things that are not good for you.
I have yet to meet an overweight raw vegan.
Yeah, I know.
You can't eat
You can't.
You can't eat Oreos.
No.
None of that stuff.
No,
it's all raw food.
Yep. Which that's like a healthy way of doing it on their, if it works for them, great.
But that'll be one of the diets we talk about.
Yeah, that'll be it.
You mentioned sugar is really bad, right? But what about like healthy fruit, like just fruits, like a lot of like
they're not bad
natural
for you.
fruits?
Just
It depends on
Would
who
that
you
be
are.
bad to eat in the morning though too? Because would it spike anything like with the?
Yeah, but not for you, with your age, with your activity level and all that kind of stuff. So it just depends on the person.
Yeah, for sure.
fruit's
And then in
great.
terms of, you said about chewing, right? So like really chewing slowly before you swallow the food.
Yeah.
What would be the recommendation?
Thanks for getting us back on track.
We're really bad at that. He just probably like bugging, he's like editing things, and he's like, okay, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Like cuts it out, you know?
Our podcasts are usually 40 to 50 minutes.
It's freaking
And
wild.
I cut it in half. The end result is 20-something minutes.
It's disgusting.
We go off on some shiny squirrel tangents.
We are shiny squirrel team.
It's all good.
So the base first thing to master with the conscious eating technique is the chewing part.
Yeah.
And some people, depending on their brain type personality, some people find it easier to count their chews.
Oh my gosh.
Other people are just going to drive
Why do they do
crazy.
that? My friend's dad did it in the military. They had them count their chews. Yeah.
And that's also a discipline technique, which is good. But then some people just chew slower. Don't worry about the chews. Other people go for texture, and they just chew until it's
Weird tasting.
like oatmeal. Yeah, when it starts to taste weird and it's all, then you're good.
Like,
Then
get
you
this
swallow
out of
it.
here.
When it starts to taste weird.
Yeah, that's me. That's what I do. I'm like, okay, it's tasting a little grainy now, so it's time to swallow.
Swallow. And then the other part about conscious eating is to focus on the taste and the texture and kind of your experiences, the smell, those kinds of things. And even talk about it if you're with somebody. So you can discuss it, which really changes your experience and increases the satiety. So there's lots of different fullness mechanisms that our body has. Wolfing it down bypasses all of them. But when you're doing conscious eating, you are capitalizing on all of those mechanisms. That's the purpose of this technique. So it's automatically getting the timing one down. So you can eat less because before you're done, it's going to register that you're full when you're really full and you're satisfied and you're not hungry anymore.
So maybe even like having a conversation with somebody while you're eating dinner, that
Huge.
would slow your eating process down a little bit.
Huge. And you're going to appreciate it more and you're going to enjoy it more.
Okay. That
And you're
makes
going
sense.
to be talking about different aspects and tones and notes and flavors and all that kind of stuff, which is another one of our pieces of the satiety mechanism.
Yeah.
And it's also helpful for most brain types to take a bite of something here, and then you've got something else on your plate, right? So then that's your next bite.
Oh, so
And then over here, that's your next bite. So your meat and your veggies and whatever. And so you're rotating around the plate, which is another aspect of it.
I always eat the stuff I like first, like the most.
I heard that's a different
Do you ever do
side
that?
tangent, but I heard for like bodybuilding is always protein first, then carbs, and then greens.
That's not. I was a bodybuilder. No, not really.
One
It's just
person
like,
told me that, but
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
As long
Yeah,
as you
it
get it all
doesn't
down.
Your stomach is smarter than that. It'll figure it out. Yeah.
It all goes in the same place anyways.
yeah.
But when you're rotating, your experience is different.
Okay.
And you've got more variety. You're talking about more different things. And you're satisfying one of your satiety. Now with this, that's just a couple parts of it. But when you're doing just those two is enough to make a huge difference. The chewing and the talking about it and enjoying it makes huge.
Yeah.
And then when you're doing that, it's broken down enough that your stomach can properly digest it. So yes, it's still going to be extracting the fat, but it's also extracting the protein and the vitamins and minerals, and you're getting the nutrients out of it. So you're eating way less. The nutrient value is way higher because that guy the example I was telling you about, because his body isn't able to extract the nutrients out of it, within 2 hours or less, he's hungry again. It's because there's a cellular satiety where the cells have to get their micronutrients or they tell you you're hungry.
Really?
So his cells are telling him he's hungry 2 hours later,
That makes
even
a
though
lot of
he
sense.
overate at dinner and he went through the food coma, and just about the time he comes out of his food coma, he's hungry again.
That's why I'll eat like 2 meals for dinner.
That's why.
Like I'll eat like one meal, like quickly, and then I'll get like hungry like an hour and a half later and then eat another meal.
Yeah, you always like hear it and you like eat
I'll
something.
eat all the snacks.
And you'll eat so much, and I'm like, and you're like an hour later, you're like, I'm hungry. I'm like, you just ate. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. Well, and there's certain calories that will make you hungrier than others.
Yeah,
Sugar.
like
Oh,
sushi. You ever had sushi?
Yeah.
Like, oh
you
my
eat the whole
dude.
thing, like the whole box.
That's my kryptonite. Like, I'll go get sushi and I can just, cause we've all been like that uncomfortable full, but you're like looking at your last bite and you're like, should I do it? And you're just like, just one more, just one more. And then you're eating it, and as you're eating it and you start to swallow it, you're just instantly regretting your decision. And you're just like on the verge of vomiting, and you're like, this was a really bad move. Especially the all-you-can-eat sushi.
Yeah.
It's
And
hilarious.
again, cultural, we need
It's
to
just
finish our plate
differences.
because there's kids in other parts of the world that are going to starve if we don't.
It's definitely a cultural thing where it's just we think that we need to finish everything very quickly. We're always on the move. It's freaking wild.
Another question I had that came to mind: why do taste buds kind of change like over time?
Great question.
That is a good question.
Oh my gosh.
JP.
Could ask it.
Wow.
I
Never would have
did not
thought.
give him that question prior. It's just
No.
brilliancy that came
We
up with
didn't. He came out. No, just kidding.
that.
Yeah, I used to love certain foods, and then I'll just get sick of them now. It's like weird.
That is weird. Yeah. Why is that? Tell us.
It's all in your brain.
Really?
Really?
Taste buds did not change.
That's a myth.
Yeah. Your preferences change.
Yeah.
It's the wiring in your brain that's interpreting what the taste buds is sending them is what changed.
That's
So,
wild.
You've had food poisoning before,
Yeah. Oh, that's terrible.
and you probably don't want to go back to that restaurant.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So you're permanently rewired in a very short period of time that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you have rewired unintentionally some circuits to like or dislike certain foods, to start liking or stop liking. When people drink alcohol,
Yeah.
9 out of 10 people don't like it the first time they drink it. They're like, oh, this tastes like rotten weeds,
Yeah.
or whatever, however they describe it.
Rubbing alcohol.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to acquire that taste. So we have to change our circuits by forcing ourselves to do something we don't like, to acquire the taste.
Uh-huh.
And so we don't know we're doing that, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know when we change our preferences, maybe we just got tired of it.
Yeah.
Maybe the brain is just, that's why I tend to change things. I don't get to the point where I dislike it anymore. I'm just tired of it.
Can the stomach communicate to the brain? Like if there's something you're eating that your stomach really doesn't like, and it's saying like,
Say it
this
again.
is-
Say it again.
Can the stomach communicate to the brain? And so there's some, like, say example, like you're eating something that's really hard to digest or whatever, and it's like not good for you, but you really like because of the taste buds or whatever. But then your stomach's like, this is like trash, and then you feel it on the way out, and then eventually you start like not liking that.
Yes, another brilliant question that I did not tell you to ask. I swear. This is your own brilliancy.
I know. I'm just
And-
cracking jokes today, so that's all I'm good for.
Brilliant, jokester. That's good though.
I should feel like I
Rubbing
should.
alcohol.
I feel like I should be like the scarecrow if I only had a
Do you
brain.
like that rubbing alcohol bottle? Just start drinking.
I know, I'm like rubbing alcohol, scarecrow, my sister. I don't know.
So
What was the brilliant question?
It was-
I blacked out.
Can the stomach communicate to the brain if you eat bad food?
yes,
See, I don't feel like I have that mechanism though.
we have this thing called the enteric nervous system.
Ooh,
Where
that's fancy.
there it is, fancy. Where there's a whole bunch of nerves down there that look like brain neurons and related to brain neurons. They call it our second brain because of it.
That makes so much sense.
Yep.
Yes.
That's
And
why I'll eat like
and if
3
you're
bowls of
communicating-
salad, like in one day, because
Yeah.
like I sometimes like mentally I'll feel more clear after I eat a salad.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So, and that, our second brain down there is hooked to our first brain, this one,
Okay.
through the vagus nerve. It starts up here, goes down through our spinal cord, and terminates in our stomach.
Okay.
And that's the superhighway, talking back and forth. And it's two-way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's signals that are coming up here to the brain, and there's signals going back down, and they're talking to each other. Brain 1, brain 2.
So that's why when you like eat something that
Yeah.
like maybe isn't good for your body,
Pizza.
well, not necessarily. Like, yes, that's not the best for you, but if you have something, it can actually affect your emotions. Like,
Really?
100%, because you have a lot of your serotonin, correct me if I'm wrong, is built in your stomach.
What?
So, like,
Yep.
you have hormones that are produced in your stomach. So, for example, people that have digestive issues, aka me, have issues with like emotional problems because their stomach isn't producing the kind of serotonin that it needs to. Everything's kind of out of whack, so it can actually affect your brain and the way that you react to things, the way that you're emotional.
Really?
It goes ebbs and flows. So that's why we actually talked about this in another podcast. Sugar, when you have a withdrawal from sugar, it's like having withdrawal symptoms literally. So that's why when you are hangry, It's usually you're deprived of
What's
sugar.
wrong? Oh.
Because see how you're getting
Okay.
angry about
Yeah,
hunger?
yeah.
It's an emotion placed within you see what I mean? Like it's linked. It's linked. And so it's just very interesting. And I've learned so much just through my own digestive problems because I've done research on it. And it's wild. And they call it your second brain for that reason because it really does communicate with this one. So
Yeah. And sugar is the
Huge.
top culprit for hangry. And I used to get hangry, but now that I'm keto, I don't have carbs and sugar, so I don't know. It's gone.
That's awesome.
I don't get super hungry anymore.
Really?
And when I do, it's not a blood sugar issue.
Wow.
I'm never hangry. So, just to sum up, just doing these first two things, slowing it down, chewing it thoroughly before you swallow it, and talking about it. So after you swallow it, talk about that experience. What did it taste like? What did it feel like? What did you enjoy? What could you change? What would you tell the chef to do next time? Those kinds of things. Make it an event.
Yeah.
It's going to take you more than 20 minutes, and then you're going to be full with way less food and satisfied instead of overfull and in pain in a food coma. You're just wiping all that stuff out with those two pieces of this technique.
I never knew food even played a whole role into emotions like that. That's interesting.
Oh my gosh,
100%.
huge.
So big.
Food really is medicine. And we are medicating our brains with every bite.
Wow.
What we take and how we take depends on how it's going to affect our brains. Love it.
Boom.
Boom.
Good work.
Boom.
Goes a dynamite.